Few days ago, I was talking to one of our clients and he asked me a very important question which actually led me to create this video. He asked, Soman, I understand there is a 5 years lease, but what if tenant actually moves out before than that? What will happen? In this video, I am actually going to uncover this. What happens when tenant moves out before the lease actually gets expired? If you want to know, then stick around. Alright, so let's understand these things. Let's say a tenant A, it's a company, it's a lease, and they have a 5 years lease. In that 5 years lease, so basically they committed that yes, we'll be staying in this premise for the next 5 years. Now, due to whatever circumstances changes, then after 2 years, they want to move out. Here is some of the things that you need to find out. First of all, what does the lease say? Does it say that there is any guarantee? The first thing that you need to look into is there is a bond or the security deposit. If there is a bond and security deposit, if the tenant moves out without telling you, of course you will cover some of these expenses from the deposit or bond, right? So most of the cases in commercial property you take about 3 months. 6 months sometimes. So if you have the bond and security deposit, that's the first thing that you are going to get, which is yours basically. The next one that you also need to look into what we call insurance. Like, have you taken insurance? Because if you have taken insurance, sometimes you can take like a 12 months of rental default as part of insurance. So that means if the tenant is not paying for the next 12 months, you can claim from the insurance. So that way you can cover these next 12 months. That's another defense, what I call that level of defense. So you have the first level, which is the bond or the security deposit. Second level, which is what I called is the insurance, which you can take up to 12 months. And assuming the insurance will be paid by the tenant, you would claim that from the tenant anyway, like the insurance premium. So that's the second level of defense. The next one that we need to look into is the guarantor. When you actually sign the lease, who were the guarantor? Was there any guarantor? And if it is any personal guarantee or it's a corporate guarantee, what kind of guarantor did you put in? You can now actually, through your solicitor, through your lawyer, you can ask them to pay the remaining amount of the lease. Because you can say, look, you signed a 5 years lease, but in 2 years you're trying to move out. I'm not getting the rent. The remaining 3 years, I want to know like how you are going to pay rent. Now this is your third level, which is the guarantor. Whether it's a personal guarantee or there's a corporate guarantee. If it is a personal guarantee, then you're going to go to that individual. If there is a multiple people, then you can go to any of these or all of them. And if it is like something, let's say you have a corporate guarantee, which is the company, and that company has money, so you can recoup that money from that company itself. The next option that of course you will be looking into is that what is the likelihood that you can get the money? Because of course you are going to go through a lawyer and then it is going to go to a court and eventually you will win, because if you have a lease in written, which is one of the important part, is that whenever you are writing a lease, whenever you are giving a lease to your tenant, make sure that lease is secured. It is written by the good solicitor. Make sure that it actually worthwhile having this kind of guarantor, having these kind of things that I just mentioned. In spite of that, let's say you have that bank guarantee, you have insurance, you have corporate guarantor, all of these failed. In other words, like you could not get that money recouped, which is your next option, of course, would be to re-tenant that property. And that's your next level of defense, to find out whenever you're purchasing something, what is the likelihood that if your tenant moves out, then you would be able to find another tenant. And that needs a bit of due diligence to find out what is going to happen if ever, because you need to always factor in some kind of risk. If the tenant moves out, how I can re-tenant. And as long as that is also tick, which means like you would be able to find another tenant easily, that actually going to give you surety that yes, I want to buy that property. The next level of defense I always say is that always keep a 3 to 6 months your mortgage payment as a buffer. So when tenant actually moves out, and assuming there is no rent coming, then the bank will always ask for your mortgage payment, right? So you have to pay the mortgage payment, and that mortgage payment you should be ideally keeping 3 to 6 months worth of money in the buffer, because if you keep this, then what will happen is that you'd be able to pay the rent, and within 3 to 6 months there will be a strong chance that you will find another tenant. If you do not get the similar rent, let's say you had 100,000 rent and you are finding another tenant, but they are saying that, look, we will be signing another 3 years or 5 years lease, but we would be paying 80% of that rent. Remember, it is better to sign a long-term lease even with a lesser rent than no rent. So coming back to the point, what if tenant moves out? There are plenty of options that you can go, and eventually, yes, you have to go through all these things, and eventually you'll be able to find out that you can do something that can make sure that the tenancy comes back in form of another tenant. So whenever you are doing this due diligence and you are buying a commercial property, make sure that you put all these layer of defense, and as long as you are putting all these layer of defense, it is very unlikely you have to go all the way till the end. And if you have, then you still have a chance to come back with a reduced rent. That's your next or the last level of defense. In reality, what's going to happen is that yes, tenant might move out, then you will find another one, you might recoup that, and tenant signed a long-term lease, which is the 5 years lease. Chances of their not honoring that 5 years lease would be very, very slim. But if it happens, you know what to do now. I hope you find these videos helpful, because a lot of the time I get these questions that what if my tenant moves out, and I always say that it's not easy for a tenant to manipulate like that. But if they do, if they claim themselves bankrupt, if they literally do not have any other money to pay your rent, and if they're not able to do the business, make sure that you can always find another tenant. Make sure that your property is viable in future for the future tenancy, then you will be all good. I hope you find these videos helpful. If you like this video, consider subscribing our channel, turn the notification bell on so you get to see more videos like this, and it will also help us to reach out to more people like you. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.